James made more money last year than at any point in his career. His salary had climbed steadily over 6 years. He had received 2 promotions, picked up a side project that added a few $100s most months, and by every external measure was doing better than he had ever done. And yet, when he sat down in January to calculate what he had actually kept from the previous 12 months, the number was almost identical to what he had kept 3 years earlier when he was earning significantly less. The money had moved through his life at a higher volume. Almost none of it had stayed. James did not have an income problem. He had a leakage problem. Money was escaping through dozens of small openings he had never identified, never measured, and never closed. Subscriptions he had forgotten, habits that felt harmless individually but combined into something significant. Lifestyle upgrades so gradual he had not noticed them happening. The raises had arrived, the spending had risen to meet them, automatically and invisibly before the money ever had a chance to build into something real. This video is about the 20 habits that changed that. Not traumatic sacrifices, not a lifestyle stripped to bare necessity, just a clear-eyed look at where money was actually going, followed by small, specific adjustments that compounded into thousands of dollars in savings without making life meaningfully worse. Some of these habits James maintains today. A few he took further than was sustainable and had to dial back. He will be earnest about both. Habit 1. Stop eating out by default and make it occasional and intentional. The first habit produced more savings than almost anything else on this list, precisely because it targeted one of the largest and most invisible spending categories most people carry. James had not thought of himself as someone who ate out frequently. A lunch here, a dinner there, the occasional takeout on a tired Wednesday evening. When he tracked it for the first time, the monthly total was alarming. Restaurant spending across a year, including the incidental coffees, the delivery fees, the casual meals that felt inconsequential, was approaching $4,000. He did not eliminate restaurants entirely. He made them deliberate. A real occasion, a genuine celebration, a dinner that was chosen rather than defaulted to. The distinction sounds small. The financial impact was not. Within a year, his annual restaurant spending had dropped by roughly $2,000 without a single experience he genuinely valued being removed from his life. The meals he kept were better. The ones he stopped having were ones he would not have remembered anyway. Habit 2. Meal plan weekly and cook in bulk. Connected to the first habit but distinct from it, James began planning every week's meals before stepping into a grocery store. The list was specific, the shopping was surgical. He bought what was needed for planned meals and nothing beyond it. The combined effect addressed several leaks simultaneously. Food waste, which the average household generates at a cost of roughly $1,000 annually, dropped to nearly zero. Impulse grocery additions stopped because there was no wandering, only retrieval. The temptation to order delivery on a tired evening disappeared because something prepared was already waiting in the refrigerator. James admits he took the cost minimization piece too far for a period. He ate the same 3 meals on rotation for nearly 2 years because they were cheap and efficient. The savings were real. So was the point at which he stopped enjoying food he had previously liked. Sustainable meal planning means planning well, not planning monotonously. Habit 3. Automate savings before spending begins. The habit that required the least ongoing effort and produced the most consistent results was structural rather than behavioral. James set up automatic transfers to savings and investment accounts timed to execute the day after his paycheck arrived, before the money registered as available, before any spending decisions were made. The amount that transferred was not available to spend. His lifestyle adjusted to what remained, naturally and without ongoing resistance. Savings happened not because he exercised monthly discipline, but because the system made spending the saved portion mechanically impossible. This works because it removes willpower from the equation entirely. Willpower is unreliable, structure is not. The money that moves automatically on payday does not require a decision every month. It just moves. Habit 4. Negotiate every recurring bill annually. James spent one afternoon per year calling every service provider he paid monthly: internet, phone, insurance, any subscription above a certain threshold, and either negotiating a lower rate or switching to a competitor who offered one. Companies raise prices gradually and quietly, counting on inertia to prevent customers from noticing or responding. A single phone call expressing intent to cancel or a genuine switch to a competing provider reliably produces offers that reverse those increases. 1 hour of annual effort consistently saved him several $100s in recurring monthly charges. The insurance comparison alone, run annually using online comparison tools, produced meaningful savings every time because rates vary significantly across providers for identical coverage, and most people never check. Habit 5. Drop to one vehicle. For 2 years, James and his household managed with a single car. The decision came from running the actual numbers on a second vehicle that was being driven perhaps twice weekly. Insurance, registration, maintenance, depreciation, the annual ownership cost of a rarely used vehicle divided by its actual use made each trip genuinely expensive. Selling the second car freed up close to $3,000 annually that went directly into investments. The inconvenience was real and occasional. The financial benefit was consistent and compounding. This is not possible for every household. 2 people commuting in different directions daily need 2 vehicles, but for households where schedules overlap or remote work reduces driving frequency, the math is worth running honestly. Habit 6. Buy used vehicles in cash and drive them long. When James did buy vehicles, he paid cash for reliable used models and drove them until the repair economics genuinely no longer made sense. The average new car payment currently exceeds $750 monthly. That is $9,000 annually flowing toward a depreciating asset before insurance or fuel are considered. A paid-off used Honda or Toyota with reasonable mileage accomplishes identical transportation. The $9,000 not spent on a car payment invested annually over a decade produces a sum that would genuinely surprise most people who consider new car payments a normal and unavoidable expense. Habit 7. House hack to eliminate or reduce housing costs. Housing is the largest expense in most household budgets. James addressed it by purchasing a small multi-unit property and renting the additional unit to offset his mortgage payment. The rental income did not cover everything, but it reduced his effective housing cost to a fraction of what comparable rent would have cost. This required becoming a landlord, managing a tenant, maintaining a property, and handling the occasional friction that comes with both. For James, the financial trade-off was unambiguous. When your largest monthly expense decreases significantly, every other financial goal becomes easier. House hacking is not universally feasible. It requires the ability to purchase, the willingness to manage, and a market where the numbers work. But for people who can make it work, it accelerates wealth accumulation faster than almost any other single habit. Habit 8. Learn to DIY home repairs and maintenance. James knew nothing about home repair when he bought his first property. He learned incrementally, starting with tasks that had low failure cost: painting, basic plumbing fixtures, simple electrical replacements, and building toward more complex work as confidence and skill accumulated. The savings across the years of property ownership ran into tens of thousands of dollars. A contractor charges several $100s for tasks that take an hour once you know how to do them. The knowledge, once acquired, applies to every property owned for the rest of a lifetime. Most people assume home repair requires expertise they do not have. In most cases, the barrier is psychological rather than technical. Basic repair skills are accessible to anyone willing to spend a weekend learning. Habit 9. Buy appliances and equipment with cosmetic damage. Clearance sections at home improvement stores sell appliances with scratches, dents, and surface imperfections at discounts of 50% or more. The appliances function identically to their undamaged counterparts. The cosmetic damage is the only difference. James purchased most of his appliances this way and resold some of the better deals for profit. A refrigerator with a scratch on the side cools identically to one without it. Every appliance acquires cosmetic damage within months of normal household use, regardless of purchase condition. Paying full price for unblemished equipment that will shortly be blemished anyway is a premium for a temporary aesthetic difference. Habit 10. Buy refurbished technology and extend replacement cycles. James used refurbished phones for years, devices that performed 95% of what current flagship phones performed at roughly a third of the price. The camera was slightly less capable, the processor benchmarked slightly lower. Neither difference mattered for actual daily use. He replaced technology when it genuinely stopped performing necessary functions, not when marketing cycles suggested it was time. The gap between those two timelines, multiplied across every device replaced over a decade, represents thousands of dollars. Before any technology purchase, the honest question is whether the current device actually fails to do something genuinely needed, or whether the desire for something newer has been mistaken for a functional requirement.
Habit 11. Eliminate the gift obligation cycle. James had a direct conversation with his family and close friends about adult gift giving. The proposal was simple: no more obligation exchanges. Shared meals, shared experiences, genuine connection, yes. Random items purchased out of obligation that would be unused within 6 months, no. The initial conversations were mildly awkward. The long-term result was holidays that were less expensive, less stressful, and arguably more meaningful. Hundreds of dollars annually stopped flowing toward retail transactions dressed as affection. Gifts for children remained. The experience of receiving something chosen specifically for them is genuinely different at that life stage. The adult obligation cycle, by contrast, is a wealth transfer to retailers that most participants would eliminate if anyone was willing to suggest it first. Habit 12. Stop paying for beverages you can make or filter yourself. A daily purchased coffee costs between $1,800 and $2,500 annually. Water from a filtration system costs a fraction of what bottled water costs. Drinks at restaurants represent some of the highest markup items on any menu. James carries a water bottle. He makes coffee at home. He orders water at restaurants. These are not significant lifestyle reductions. They are the elimination of premium pricing on commodities that are available at negligible cost through alternatives that require minimal adjustment. The opportunity framing makes this concrete. A daily $5 coffee habit, invested instead over 30 years, produces a sum that would reframe how most people evaluate the habit. Habit 13. Track every dollar for at least 1 month. Most people believe they know approximately where their money goes. Almost nobody who actually tracks it confirms that belief. The exercise consistently surfaces subscriptions that have been charging for months without use, categories that run double the estimated amount, and patterns that are invisible without measurement. James used a simple spreadsheet. The specific tool is irrelevant. The habit of recording every transaction for 30 days and reviewing the results produces awareness that changes behavior more reliably than any budgeting rule applied without that foundation. Knowing where money goes is the prerequisite for controlling where it goes. Habit 14. Eliminate all fees. Bank fees, ATM fees, late payment fees, subscription auto-renewal fees.
James audited every recurring charge and eliminated every fee that could be eliminated through switching providers, setting up auto-pay, or canceling unused services. Americans pay hundreds of dollars annually in bank fees alone for the privilege of having an institution hold their money. Free checking accounts exist. Free ATM access exists. Late fees are eliminated by automation. These are not savings that require sacrifice. They are the recapture of money being transferred to financial institutions for no benefit received. Habit 15. Apply a waiting period to non-essential purchases. Before any purchase that was not a genuine necessity, James wrote it down and waited. Small purchases waited a week. Moderate purchases waited a month. Significant purchases waited longer. The purpose of the waiting period was not to forbid spending, but to expose which desires were genuine and which were momentary. Most items on the list did not survive the wait. The desire faded without the urgency that had made it feel pressing. The purchases that remained after the waiting period were ones that reflected actual values rather than emotional impulse. Habits 16 through 20, the compounding layer. The final cluster of habits operated at the level of principle rather than individual tactic. James avoided lifestyle inflation by deliberately keeping expenses flat as income grew, directing every raise and additional income stream toward investments rather than upgrades. He joined local sharing groups that allowed him to borrow rarely needed tools and equipment rather than purchasing them. He calculated cost per use before any significant purchase to identify whether the real value matched the price. He ran periodic no-spend challenges, a week or a month with zero discretionary spending, to interrupt automatic consumption habits and reset his baseline. And he built additional income streams in parallel with his main income, treating nights and weekends as the raw material for financial options rather than exclusively for rest. None of these habits individually transformed his finances. Together, over several years, they compounded into a financial position that looked nothing like where he started. James is honest about the limits of frugality as a strategy. Some of the habits he took too far produced real costs that did not appear in any spreadsheet. There were experiences worth having that he skipped. There was a period where the focus on minimizing spending crowded out the enjoyment that the money was supposed to eventually enable. Frugality is a tool. The goal was never to spend as little as possible. The goal was freedom. The financial margin to make choices without money being the constraint. When frugal habits serve that goal, they are worth maintaining. When they begin costing things that genuinely matter, they are working against their own purpose. The 20 habits in this video are not a blueprint to follow at maximum intensity. They are a menu of specific, proven ways to close the leaks that are quietly draining most people's finances without their full awareness. Pick the ones that address your actual leaks. Implement them. Track the difference for 60 days. The money is already flowing through your life. These habits are just about making sure more of it stays.